Confirm that it shows for me.
Yep, you're good.
Awesome. Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm Jared Moss. I'm with Yooz. I'm happy to be here on this presentation today. So I'll go through a few slides and we'll actually jump into the solution itself. So first thing to know about Yooz, we were born in the cloud in 2010, but we are a spinoff of another company that was founded back in the 80s. So all of the technology that we use is actually owned by Yooz, and we've been working on it for close to 40 years. We are a global company, so we have over 6,000 clients now. This says five, but this is a little older of a slide. So we can work with you no matter where you're at within the United States, Canada, South America, Europe, wherever you need to be. We can help you and assist you there. And the big thing about Yooz is we reinvest heavily into our solution because it is our technology. We own it. We want to make sure that we're not just winning your business today, we win it tomorrow and every day going forward. So let's talk about a day in the life of the AP department. So as things are coming in and things are happening, a lot of times these invoices might be received by a project manager. They can be physically handed to them while they're on a job site. There's a lot of different ways invoices can be received into a company. And so what happens then is they have to figure out how to get it to the right team. Maybe they're forwarding it to an AP inbox. Maybe they're taking a picture with their phone and then texting it to someone. But we find that a lot of companies, especially in the construction space, they do have trouble making sure that all of the invoices are coming and being received to the right group. Now, once it finally makes it to the AP team, those AP clerks or whoever is responsible for getting those invoices, now what they have to do is make sure they're tracking down approvals. Now, if it came to a project manager, maybe that project manager has already given approval there, but they may have other people that need to be involved in the process. Now, those other people in the process could be people that are on site at a job site, so they're having to either email them, text them, place phone calls, but they're really waiting for someone somewhere to do what they need to do. That way, once it's approved, they can now go into the Acumatica, put the information in. The potential for errors, of course, because as people enter data in, it happens, right? It's just the nature of the beast as you work with manual human entry. Now, the other piece that's really interesting is that with approvals, we know that they can be very, very slow. Most of the clients we work with have told us that one of their biggest issues was getting approvals done in a timely manner when people are so spread out across job sites and things like that. And what that can do is really create a bottleneck to ensure that payments are being made on time. Now, if payments are to the subcontractors and other vendors are late, that can really damage those relationships, potentially delaying future work. And that also could mean that there could be penalties or late payment discounts, things like that. Not late payment discounts, but early payment discounts that they might lose based on some of that information getting processed in a timely manner. And then the biggest piece we also see is invoices getting lost because that can make it really difficult depending on how vendors are submitting their invoices in and who they're submitting them to. Now, as we move forward, let's talk about the challenges. So we talk about all the things we just discussed. Now, when we have that job site to office disconnect, project managers, site supervisors being out in the field, that really makes them being fully remote. That can, sometimes they have to come into the office to do certain activities. Now, this physical and digital gap, it can lead to delays in getting those invoices where they need to be. And so because of that, you lose that real-time visibility into where an invoice is actually at. And so we'll walk through that within the Yooz application here in a moment. Now that what that does then is finance teams, they're not able to easily track spending by their jobs, their vendors, or even their projects because they don't have access to that information immediately. Now let's talk about the next thing is amplifying through AP automation here. So what we have found is that a lot of companies, as they go through, mobility is huge for them. So within a mobile workforce, being able to actually, I'm sorry, one slide behind for you here. I see y'all are seeing the wrong one. There we go. Now we're on the right slide. So as we go through this, when we're looking at that, they need to be able to capture things immediately as they get them, receive them, whether it's via email, if they're on a job site, invoices physically handed to them, manually handed to them. Project managers need to be able to snap a photo of that invoice from their phone, upload it instantly, get it into the cycle of the process, so that way they don't have to worry about handing it over to somebody later, putting it down, maybe wind blows it away. I've actually spoken with customers who what they would do is they had a file folder at each of their job sites, and every invoice would go into that that folder, and then somebody would manually come and drive around and pick all that up. Hopefully, not getting lost in their car, one not blowing away or getting potentially thrown away by accident, and that really creates a potentiality for issues with their vendors. And the other piece about the mobility and from a capture standpoint is being able to not have to have paper coming to that office, and then approvals can then happen anywhere using a mobile device as well. From a workflow perspective, smart routing and alerts can be built-in notification. That means you're not having to chase people down for approvals. The system can chase them down for you. Everything moves faster because it moves directly into the workflow and much smoother. You're not having to send emails, build those out, wait for people to respond, hope they saw that one email or think they've responded to it, but in reality, they responded to two other ones that weren't as important as the one that you're trying to get them to do now. And then, of course, we talk about attachments. That's a really important piece in the construction space because you may have, AIA documents, you may have lien waivers, insurance documents, you may have pictures that you want to take and put as part of the approval process within the invoice itself. So clients having the ability to actually take a picture of the work that was done to prove that it was done correctly and accurately, allowing them to move that down and say, yep, we approve that actually being paid because here's proof that it was completed, not just taking a word for it from the invoice itself. So let's talk about what Yooz does with Acumatica. So, of course, all the standard branches and dimensions and stuff that Acumatica has, but from a construction-specific standpoint, pulling in those cost types, cost codes, projects, project managers, you're creating purchase orders, you're creating subcontract orders. All of those can come into the Yooz application for matching from an invoice perspective. And then we're also going to bring in that retainage information to ensure that as everything's being reviewed and looked at, that it can be following the correct process and approval based. And as payments are being made as well, making sure you're not making payments based on the full amount, you're making payments based on what it should actually be paid at that given time. And then, another big piece is project managers because they really drive a lot of this construction space and approvals from an approval standpoint. And so we want your project managers to be fully engaged. So not having to, create workflows for every single project that you actually maintain. Having Yooz have the flexibility to sync in a project and then who that project manager is assigned to that project allows for one workflow to route everything appropriately. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you what that looks like within the Yooz application. Sometimes seeing is better than just walking it through. So, for example, if I have here in the Jenga construction application, I go in, we go to this flag service invoice here, I'm going to open it up. And as you can see, all the information is here and easy for me to review. So I have an image of the invoice over here on the right. I have my properties here on the left. I have my lines down here at the bottom, including it being assigned to a project already. And that's a really important feature because this project right here will actually drive how this goes through the approval workflow, of which I'll show you in 2 seconds. I did also mention the fact that you can, attach documents. One of the things we've done here for this work is they wanted to show the work that was actually done. And so they've put in the information here. Here's the pictures. So as this information is complete, as it's been approved, when we sync that bill into Acumatica, it's not just the bill that syncs, it's actually the invoice, a picture of the invoice itself and the attachments. So you're really getting the full information syncing over into Acumatica automatically. So a really cool feature that's there within the Yooz platform. Now, within our workflows, I want to show you 2 quick things. So our dimensions for projects is here where the project managers are housed. I want to show that to you. That's really important because as project managers are updated and changed, one person leaves, new person comes on, new projects are created, all of that is going to sync automatically into the Yooz platform. And then we're going to have those project managers there. So when we create the different workflows within our application, again, that one workflow that says, hey, route based on a project approver, that is as simple as that. As you can see here, one workflow, doesn't matter what the project is, going to route automatically based on that. But workflows within the Yooz application can be set up a multitude of different ways. We can set no-touch workflows. We can set up keyword workflows. So if you have a specific keyword that comes in, so if it's, for example, lumber, like, hey, I want all lumber invoices to go to Amy Keenan, no problem. Within our application, we will create a workflow that says, hey, if the word lumber is on that invoice, Amy is your approver for that. And if she wants to see anything regarding that, we can have those types of workflows created. Within the application itself, you also, I mentioned, not having to worry about chasing down approvals. Yooz gives you the ability to only mark tasks as late after a certain amount of times. You say, hey, I may want an approver to have 2 days to approve something before I want to re-notify them. You have something to do. Let's keep this moving along. Don't make your AP team do that. Let us take care of that for you. You can even escalate it if after that 2 days, you say, hey, after the 2-day notification that, hey, you haven't done your job, I'll give you another day. And after that, I'm going to escalate it to either your manager or to a business admin. So really kind of laying home the fact that we're going to chase down those approvals. Your team and the customer doesn't have to worry about that. Now, one couple big things I'm going to show here. I'm not going to take the whole time because I want to make sure you get a little time back in your day, but a few things that are really important in the Yooz environment from a construction standpoint. So one is Yooz Protect. This is a fantastic feature here that we have at Yooz that is really around fraud prevention. So fraud prevention, fraud is really getting larger and larger, especially as AI use increases by bad advocates out in the market. And, fraud is getting larger and larger as they go and more complex. Most companies find fraudulent invoices after payments have been made. And at that point, they're spending time working with their banks or the police, trying to get those funds back, which is really a difficult thing. Sometimes they never get it back. And we've seen that quite often. What Yooz actually does is it works to prevent fraud at the beginning, though. And so what Yooz is doing as an invoice comes into the application, we're reading all of the data anyways to help define what is what within the invoice. So like what's the invoice number, what's the invoice date, the amounts, taxes, whatever. Like we're reading all that information anyways, but we're also doing forensic analysis within it too to ensure that if something has been altered or edited, we're going to call that out. And so here within our application, you can see, hey, we've seen a potential fraud, and I have a fraud detection tab here that I click on, and it's going to show me exactly what was added to the document. And it's saying that what has been added is actually obscuring something else, and this is actually banking data. So this will give you the ability to catch that at the front, and then you can either call your vendor or you can email them directly out of the Yooz application. The actual invoice is attached here, and you can ask them just like that, hey, I'm seeing this invoice here. We may have a potential problem. Can you tell me if this is right? Did you change your banking information? Did maybe just do it a little differently to add it in there? But before I move forward with this invoice, even pushing it into the approval process, we want to make sure we validate this is correct. So again, we want to protect you at the beginning, not after it's already done. Another big piece that's really important to the construction industry we also see is vendor statements. So with vendor statements, what Yooz will do is I have clients today, that will print out a vendor statement. They'll have 3 markers. They'll have one for I've received the invoice and everything matches. One for I've received the invoice, but something's off. Or I haven't received the invoice. So if you have, 50 to 100 lines there, that could take you 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how fast you go in and can look at those invoices individually. Within the Yooz application, as statements come in, Yooz is reading the data line by line and extracting it, and then matching again invoices as received. So as I as I scroll down line by line, you can see it's showing you where it's pulling that data off of the vendor statement up in the top right here. Now, what's important to note over here in blue, these are hyperlinks to the actual invoices within the Yooz application. And if we haven't received it, there'll be no hyperlinks, so the numbers will be in black. So if I click once here, click twice here, you'll see everything has a hyperlink. That means every single invoice on this statement I've received. That part is done. If I go over here to matching, I click it once, here's my X. This is the single one invoice on this invoice that has or statement that has an issue. This is the only one I need to work on, the only one I need to communicate with the vendor on. Nothing else I need to do. So that time that may have taken them, 45 minutes, an hour longer, now it takes them seconds. Very simple, very quick, very easy. And this 168917, the problem is that the amount is different. I can actually email the vendor directly out of the Yooz application. I can scroll down. I can even attach the original invoice they sent us over to show them, hey, your statement and the invoice you sent us doesn't match. Please confirm. Another thing I can do, because this is a really important aspect as well, communication with our suppliers. We have the ability to communicate directly within our application to specific vendors that you want to give access to. If you have a couple of those vendors that are constantly reaching out for statuses of where's my invoice? Did you receive it? Where's my payment? Do you have it? Are you sending it to me? What's going on? Well, within the Yooz application, you can communicate them here, and you can see here a vendor. They'll receive a notification that you have a question for them. Then I'm going to show you as they go in and they log in to the application, what they're going to see. Oh, if I spell it right, there we go. They'll see a status of here are their invoices. Now up here, I have a notification because somebody has put a comment into this statement. And so if I click on it, it'll take me right to the invoice or statement in question, and then here's the piece that I just typed in. And so that'll allow you and your vendor to communicate back and forth directly within the Yooz application. That way everything stays together, especially if audits or audit trails are really important. This will keep everything together in one solution. That way you're not having to continuously go back and forth between a solution and maybe email or picking up the phone. Hopefully that the answer you got is you document it and then you saved it for later. And so that's really what the crux of what the Yooz application is doing there. Another piece I just want to call out from the statement piece, we got that. We got the Yooz Protect. I also want to call out the matching. So we're going to pull PO-based information in or subcontract invoice in here. Now, this is just a regular PO based to an invoice versus a construction one. But one thing about Yooz is we're not one-to-one. What that means is within our application, you can match invoices to multiple purchase orders or multiple subcontract orders. Really important. So your vendors aren't having to send a single invoice for every PO they receive. They can combine multiple ones to make it much more simpler for them to invoice you. They can also do multiple invoices to a single PO, so you can decrement them as they go. So again, flexibility for your vendors, make it really, really easy for them. The decrement one is not a huge one, but the one where you can actually take multiple POs to a single invoice, that's a key differentiator for the Yooz application. All right, so that is the crux of what I wanted to show today, because I wanted to make sure you have time back in your day. If you like what you saw, you want to talk more, you can contact us, go to our website, or you email us, contact@us.getyoozed.com. That is our phone number. And I'm sure if you have questions, put them in the chat. I will be here for another 20 minutes or so, and I'm happy